be any kind of source, like we will have in real time, like we will have a different kind of sources. It might be database, okay, or else it may be flat files. Flat files are nothing but the notepads. Okay, in some cases, like a client may save their data in some notepads. Okay, or else some Excel sheets. Okay, so likewise, we will have database in the sense like we will have different databases. Like it might be Oracle. Okay, it might be DB2. Okay, or else it might be SQL Server. Okay, or else it might be Space. Okay, so we have many databases like that. So end of the day, we need to load the data into our warehouse. Okay, so that means like database to database table. Okay, so this is different types of loads we all have. We're having different types of data loads. So first thing is database table to database table. Okay, so if source is like database in the sense like it may be from Oracle database table or else DB2 database table or else SQL Server database table. Okay, any other database table. So by end of the day, you are loading the data into other database table. The next thing is plot file to database table. Okay, some notepad files. So notepad files to database table, or else in some cases we may need to load the data into flat files. Okay, so it's not for data warehousing purpose, or but for temporary purpose, or else for customer ask you to load the data from database table to flat file for any other research or any other kind of to do some kind of analysis, or else to have data backups or something like that. Okay, we have different purposes. So end of the day, we can load the data from database table to flat files. Similarly, we have Excel to database table. Okay. In other cases, like we may need to load the data from database table to Excel sheets. Okay. So these are the different types of data loads that we face when we working with SSIS. Okay. So let's start with the database table to database table. The first loading database table to database table. How to load the data. Okay, so for that, like we will interact with uh, SQL Server data tools. Okay, so in earlier versions, like in till 2008 R2. Okay, so we have bits instead of SQL Server data tools. We call this is called SQL Server data tools, right? This part. So instead of that, like we used to have a bits business intelligence development studio. Business intelligence development studio. Okay, so now in like latest versions after 2008 or 2, we have a 2010, 12, 14, 16 like that, right? So in latest versions, this one they change this one as SSTT, SQL Server Data Tools. Okay, so which was completely built using the .NET platform. Okay, Visual Studio platform. So open that. So Assume like we are going to create a new project. So yesterday I explained you, right? So the hierarchy of project, solution, project and packages. So similar manner, like let's create a package, a solution. So I'm taking integration services, project, sample, project, 29 June. Here I will give sample solution to 29 June. Okay, so when you are working in real time, so have a meaningful names for each and everything. It might be database objects. Okay, database objects is tables, views, procedures, whatever it might be. Okay, so inside of the database object we may have columns, even for columns. Okay, when you create the projects, okay, project solution. So inside of the project or solution we will have packages. Okay, inside of the package like we will have a number of tasks we are going to use for each and everything. Okay, whatever the component that you are working on need to give a meaningful name for each and everything. That is the mandatory thing. Okay, so you should not simply leave that as is. Okay, it should be in understandable way. Click on OK. So project will open like this. Okay, so if you observe here, whatever the components, if you right side, sorry, left side, left side pan, we are able to see SSIS toolbox. So this is what the tools that we are going to interact at the time of SSIS implementation. Okay, from this pan only we will pick whatever the task or else whatever the component we are required, we will pick from here and we will place in this workspace which is available in the middle. Okay, and whatever the work we are going to save as a package, that and all you can see under solution explorer bar right side. Okay, solution explorer bar, under that you can see the project name, under project you can see the name of packages. Okay, so you can create a multiple packages like this. Okay, so whatever the package you are having, so that will I mean if you double click, let me close this. I'll close this. So see here we are having one package, right? We are having one package here. So if you want to work in this particular package, you need to double click this. You need to double click on this package. So then automatically the window will open in the middle. Okay, so this is what the work area for this particular package. Again, if you have one more package, assume like you are having one more package, package one. Okay, so if you want to, we are having two packages now. Now you want to work on this particular package one, so you need to double click on this. So then the workspace which is related to package one will open here. If you put the cursor here, it will show in which package you are in now, or else the name itself will show like in which package you are in now. So based on that you need to take the components from the left side toolbox and then work on those things. Okay, so now I am going to work on this particular package. Double click on this. So we are telling like we are going to pull the data from source to target, or also one source to one destination table, one source table to one destination table. So in that case you are using SSIS. So SSIS will act as a bridge in between source and destination. Okay, so that means SSIS needs to interact with the source component, source database, and SSIS needs to interact with destination connection, or else destination database. Why to interact means it needs to take the data from source component and it needs to load the data into destination component. So to interact with source and destination, we need to create connections. Okay, we need to build a connection. We need to give a bridge. So the bridge is nothing but the connections. So whatever the connections you are going to create, those connections will be appear in the connection manager tab, which is available in the below. Okay, So in this particular tab, you are going to create your connections, or else you can create the connections ad hocly that I will tell you on fly. So, so first, you are going to interact with source and destination, right? So build the connection for source. Okay, after that build the connection for destination. Okay, so see here how to build the connections. Okay, how to give a bridge from source to SSIS and SSIS to destination. So put the cursor in the connection manager tab, right click over here. There you can see the options like new OLEDB, Flatwell, ADO.NET, analysis services, and some more things. Okay, so now my intention is I want to load the data from database table to database table. So take OLEDB connection to interact with the database, OLEDB connection. Okay, so the configure OLEDB connection manager window will open like that. So in this particular window, from this particular window, like you can pick the connection managers if you have already. So if you see here, I am having two connections here. Okay, so why? Because I already created the connection and I already started working on this particular SSIS thing. So that's why it is showing already existing connections. Okay, if you want to use them, you can use those connections. Or else altogether, if it is a fresh thing, then you won't see connections like this, right? So let me remove this. Okay, now if it is a fresh kind of implementation, okay, fresh kind of interaction with the SSIS, then the window will be like this. The data connections will be empty and the connection properties also will be empty. Then go to new. See here, here you can see the first option like provider. Okay, provider in the sense like I am going to, let us say my source is some SQL server. Okay, and destination is also some another SQL server. So in that case, SSIS needs to interact with the SQL server. Okay, to interact with the SQL server, it should have I mean like it needs some kind of bridge. Okay, then only it will reach that particular SQL server. Otherwise it won't reach that SQL server. To reach the SQL server, the SSIS is providing some kind of providers. Okay, so if you open that provider tab, if you open that drop down, you can see many providers. Okay, to interact with Oracle, to interact with Excel sheets, or else to interact with the analysis services, or else to interact with any other data mining services, something like that. For now my intention is I am going to interact with the SQL server. So for that purpose I need to take the service provider, Microsoft provider for SQL server. Okay, once you take that server name, I mean like that particular provider, now I am going to interact with the SQL server as a source, right? So pick that particular server name. Okay, so server in the sense like in real time you will have three environments, three different environments. Okay, so whatever the developer used to work, that particular environment or else that particular server is nothing but the development environment or else development server. Okay, once the development is done, then they will move all the development works to testing server. Okay, once the testing is fine, Once they test QA people, whoever quality analysis people or else whoever the testing people are there in the project, so they will test all our implementation. Okay, so they will test the functionality, like they will get the I mean, like, we will have the customer requirements, right? So they will test as per the customer requirement, whatever the dimensions customer asked, all their available or not in the proper manner. Okay, so how customer wants to see the data in a particular manner. Okay, so in that case, whatever the format customer wants to see the data, so is that particular data is in that particular format or not. So they will check all the customer requirements that we are fulfilling or not. If everything is fine, then we can move that particular implementations or else all our development work to production environment. Okay, so these are the three stages that we will do. We will move our code. Okay, development environment, testing environment, and production environment. For each and every environment, we will have a different servers. Okay, assume like here you are having for development environment one server. Okay, and even in testing environment also you are having one server, one testing server, and for production also you are having one production server. But in real time, for each and every environment, okay, you may have multiple servers. For development, 2-3 servers, testing 2-3 servers, production also we may have 2-3 servers. Okay, so out of them, to which server or else to which environment you are going to connect. Okay, so that particular server details we have to give over here. Okay, so since it's my local, so I have only one server. So let me connect to the SSMS to pick that server name. So this is what the server name. I will take this and I will keep my server name over here. So once you place the server, then log on to that particular server. So logging into that particular server, you are having two options: Windows authentication, SQL Server authentication. Okay, Windows authentication means the credentials which you use to interact with your machine, to interact with your computer. So you want to interact with the SQL Server with those credentials, or use SQL Server authentication. SQL Server authentication means at the time of installation, it will ask you to have a SQL Server credentials, separate credentials for SQL to interact with the SQL Server. So you want to interact with those credentials. So it's up to you. So for here, I'm going to interact with my Windows authentication. That means whatever the credentials I'm using to interact with my machine, I'm using only those credentials. So I'm selecting this point. After that, connecting to the database. Connect to the database. Okay.
Sir, one question. Like in real case, what they will use? Like they will go with Windows authentication, or they will go with SQL Server authentication.
It depends actually. It depends. It's not mandatory to have SQL Server authentication. They will tell you in real time. They will give you the credentials. Okay, if they have separate credentials for SQL Server authentication, they will give you. Or else, like whenever you are interacting with the virtual machines from the client side, okay. So to log on to that particular machine, they will give you the credentials. Okay, so in some cases, like they will ask you to whatever the credentials you are using with, credentials to interact with that particular vim, you can use those credentials. Or else, in some cases, they will tell you you have a separate credentials for SQL Server. Only use those credentials. Okay, credentials point all the things like login details they will give you. Okay, so what are the lines that you use to interact with the machine, or else whatever the logins that you need to go into interact with the SQL Server, or else anything, analysis services, or else whatever it may be. Okay, so all the connection details they will give you. Okay, so once after interacting with the server, in that server you may have many databases. Like, let me connect. Okay, so this is what my server. Instead of the server, you are having databases folder. Open the databases folder. Like I am having a different databases inside of this particular server. I am having different servers. Which server you are going to you want to use? So I want to use this one as my source. Okay. So for that purpose, I am selecting one database. This database. Okay, once you select your database, test the connection, whether you are going to interact with that particular server properly or not. So once you click on the test connection, it will show that test connection succeeded. Click on OK. So this database I want to use as my source. Click on OK. Okay. So connection appearing here, right? So select that particular connection, click on OK. Now whatever the connection you have created, it will appear here. Okay, this is what server name dot database name. Okay, so after that build the connection for destination. Again go to the OLEDB connection. Okay, click on new. So I am taking I want to interact with the SQL server as my destination also the same. Click on OK and give the server name. Okay, I want to interact with the same server and the database is different, training database. Okay, so this is what my other database that I am going to interact, and I will use this one as my destination. Test the connection. Yes, perfectly. Click on OK and then take this particular training and click on OK. Here you are having two connections. Okay, so to understand, to have a meaningful understanding, just rename these connections. Rename. I will give like source underscore. Okay, source underscore, and here I will give like target. Okay, so if anybody comes and look at the connection managers, they will easily understand, yes, this is the source connection and the database is something like this, and this is the target connection and the database is something like this. So we are having two connections, which one is for source and one is for target. So once you create the connections, now you have to use these connections to pull the data. Okay, so interact you for using those connections and selecting the tables. Okay, the source table and the target table. Okay, and you need to keep all those things in one particular component. That particular component is nothing but the data flow task. Here you can see the data flow task. In SSIS toolbox you can see the data flow task. Select that particular data flow task and drag to into your workspace. Okay, so you will get the data flow task. If you can see the symbol itself, one database and another database, it is the data is flowing from here to here. Okay, so data flow task. So once you get the task in your workspace, now in workspace you are in which workspace you are in control flow tab. Okay, so in control flow, you will have the data flow task. That data flow task, you can select and drag to your workspace. It will come over here. Once you get the data flow task, just double click on that. Okay, once you double click on that, if you see here, once you double click on that, it will automatically take you to data flow tab. Okay, since we are having many tabs over here, you are started working with control flow tab, and inside of the control flow you are having one data flow task. Once you double click on the task, it will automatically takes you to data flow tab. Okay, data flow tab. So inside of the data flow tab, now what you need to do is go to sources, pick the OLEDB source, select and drag to your workspace. Okay, and go to the destinations, take OLEDB destination component, select that and drag to your workspace. Okay, so you are having two components. These are all predefined components. Now you have to specify the source connection and source table name, and destination connection and destination table name. Okay, so to specify source connection and source table name, we are going to use OLEDB source component. And to specify destination connection and a destination table, we are having OLEDB destination. Okay, so to specify the connections, first I am going to specify the connections in source component. So double click on that. Once you double click, the editor will open like this. Okay, so here you can see the options like OLEDB connection manager and name of the table or view. Okay, so go to drop down. There you can see two connections. Okay, source, adventure works, target, training. So whatever the connections you have built over here, those connections you can see over here. Okay, in real time you may have many connections, since you may have many servers as sources and many servers as destinations. So in that cases, in connection managers tab you may have many connections. So you can see all the connections in this particular block. So I'm taking this one as a source component, and data accessing mode. How you are going to access the data? Okay, you can access the data in different formats. Like you can take simply one table name, or else instead of table name you can write a SQL query. Okay, select star from a particular table, or else something like that, or else you can specify a variable to pick a query. Okay, so how to specify variables and all I will tell you. Variable in the sense which will execute at runtime. Okay, whenever you started executing the package. Okay, so at that time it will pick what we call, it will pick the columns, or else it will pick the query result dynamically at that moment. Okay, how to do likewise I will tell you. So for now, take the table or view data accessing mode. Okay, so once you specify this data accessing mode, here you can see name of the table or view. Select any table, or else whatever the source table you want to have, select that particular source table. Okay, here I am having many tables. What I will take is I am going to take this department table or else this employee table as my source. Okay, once you select the table, go to columns here. Okay, see, if you click on the columns, then it is showing all the available columns in my source table. Okay, these are all the available columns in my source table. Okay, so let us say in source table I have 200 columns, but I want to populate only 50 columns into my destination table. Okay, but by default this component has been selected all the columns. I don't want all these columns. In that case, you can just simply unselect this. Okay, if you select this, all the columns will come. But if you don't want all the columns, then you can simply unselect this and pick the columns whatever you want. Okay, so let us say I want to have only business ID, login, some job title, birth date, marital status, gender, okay, organization node, uh, hire date, okay, some salary flag, vacation hours. Okay, if I want to have only these columns, I can select only these. Otherwise, if I want to have all the columns, I can select the entire columns. Okay, so now I am selecting all the columns. Click on OK. Okay, so once you tell the system your connection and your database table name and the columns, so whatever the red mark appeared over here like this, right? So that has been disappeared. Why? Because earlier you are getting that error mark because of you didn't configure that properly. Now you have configured that source component perfectly in the sense configuration, in the sense specifying the connection manager and specifying the data accessing mode and specifying the table name. Once you take the table name, you will specify the columns whichever you need. Okay, so now you are ready with your source, and you need to be ready with destination table. Okay, so once you're ready with your source, then you can select that source component. There you can see two arrow marks. Okay, one is in red color and another one is in some blue color or green color, something like that. Okay, it depends on the version. So in earlier versions you will have the arrow like in green color. Now in latest versions the arrow mark will be in blue color. Okay, so take that arrow mark, blue color arrow mark, and drag and relieve a OLEDB destination. Okay, so once you place the cursor, once you place the arrow on the destination component, double click, select the destination and double click on that. Now you need to specify the destination, I mean connection and destination table as well. You have selected source connection and source table. Okay, now you have to specify the destination tables also, into which table, I mean in which server, into which table you want to load the data. Okay, so select the destination connection. This is what my destination connection. Click on OK. Okay, so here also you are having different data access modes. Okay, from variable you want to pick, or else some fast load or normal load, something like that. So in general you will go for fast load. Okay, fast load in the sense like it will keep high amount of temporary memory. Okay, and then load the data bunch of records at a time into temporary memory, and then load the data into destination likewise. Okay, so nothing to worry about that. So after that, name of the table are due. Okay, into which table you are going to load the data. So if you have your destination table ready with you, you can select you can pick the table name from the list of tables. Where you get these list of table means, see, this is what my destination database, right? So instead of this, you will have all those tables. You want to load the data into any of these tables, then you can pick from the drop down. Okay, or else if you don't have any destination table as of now, then create the destination table. Okay, so go back to the database and write a new query, select the new query, and here you can write your create table statement. Okay, but to write a create table statement, I need to have column names as well, right? But I don't know what are the column names that I am having in my source. So in that case, how to create the table? You have one option here, new. Okay, click on new. Once you click on new, the system will automatically get the table names and table name and column names automatically. Why we are getting those column names and table name means, see, you are trying to populate the data from here to here, right? So how you are telling like that? By specifying the arrow mark. Okay, so from here to here, whatever the columns you have selected in the source component, that all columns will come over here. Okay, now if you select new, then it will automatically suggest a create table statement with the column names as well. Okay, since all these columns coming from source, the same similar columns it is suggesting to have in destination table as well. So I will rename this suggestion name. So target employee 29 June. I am creating the table with the name target employee 29 June, and with all these columns. Click on OK. Okay, now your table is ready. The system will automatically create a table. Okay, go back and check your database. See, as of now you don't have any table with that particular name, right? So what is my table name? Target, right? TAR. Is there anything? No, you don't have any table with the TARG, target. Let me refresh the tables. Select the tables and go to refresh icon. Once you refresh, see, you got the table over here. That means system will automatically create table on behalf of you. Okay, so go here. So once you got the table name, go to mappings. This is what the important thing in data flow task. Go to mappings. Okay, mapping in a sense, let us say in your source table you are having 20 columns and your target table you are having 25 columns. So in that case, these 20 source columns should map with 20 columns in the target table, which is having 25 columns. Okay, so with which column I want to populate the data. So likewise you need to give the mapping. Okay, so since these columns all are matching, okay, now you can see the you will have the a mapping editor like this in real time. Okay, if you don't have any matching names in the source and destination, then you will have like this. Then you need to go for a manual mapping in the sense, I have 20 columns here, I have 20 columns here, from which column to which column you want to populate the data. Okay, so now this is what my source column, business entity id. I want to populate this business entity id into destination business entity id, login ID to login ID, job title to job title, like that. So I want to populate the data. So from here also you can select. For birth date, I will take source birth date. For marital status, take marital status. Gender, gender. So likewise, you need to go for the mapping. Okay. So this is what the important thing when you are doing any kind of mappings. So even though like by default it got mapped automatically. Why it got mapped automatically means it is having mapping columns. So now I am done with my mappings. I have mapped all the columns. Okay, I have mapped all the columns. Click on OK. See, the arrow mark got disappeared. Okay, so this is what my data flow task. Give a proper name to this data flow task. Load some, what is our table name? TARGET, target employee 29 June. Okay, so if anybody comes to you and look at that particular data flow task, then simply they can say, yes, in this particular data flow task we are loading this particular table. Okay, and from where you are loading the data, open this and change the source name. Double right click on that and go to rename. It is from source, which is employee table, and the destination, select the destination, right click and rename it target employee target employee 29 June. Okay, so by looking at the components now, anybody can tell like, yes, source is employee table and the target is something like this name. Okay, so once you select that particular thing, you can control S, save the package, save that and execute the package. Now everything you are ready. If you start executing the package, if you start loading, in the sense you have to execute that package. Okay, so start loading, how to say start loading, this is the button. Okay, if you can click on that particular button or else F5 from your keyboard, F5, click on that. See, in control flow we are having this data flow task, right? Whenever you start executing this particular button, if the load is happened successfully or else if this particular task has been executed without any errors, the green color arrow mark will show here like this. So go to the data flow. Instead of this you are having this part, right? So it is successfully able to pick the data from source, that's why it is showing some green color. From source to destination it is populated 290 rows. Okay, and once the data is populated successfully it will show the green color mark. Okay, go back and check, get the confirmation from the database also. This is what my table name, select start from that particular table. See, I got 290 rows. Okay, so likewise, you can load the data from source to destination. Okay, so here it is showing the row count. Even though it is showing the row count over here, but don't believe this particular row count. Go back and confirm the table by writing a query. Okay, so then only you will come to know whether the data is loaded properly or not. Why? Because in earlier versions, like in 2008 or 2008 R2, we have some environment issues. Okay, there it will show the row count like this, 290 rows or 500 rows, something like that. Okay, whatever the source rows it is picking, those rows it is showing like it's populated. But when we go back and check in the database, we are not having the data. We are not having the data because of some environment issues. But now in later versions, I think that was resolved actually. Okay, 99% it was resolved. But in safe case, we have to check with the database also every time. Once after loading the data, we have to check with your database. Okay, like if you start the project for the first time and the implement is also is the first time, then you have to check, you have to take care of all these things initially. Okay, so going forward, if everything is fine, going forward you won't get any kind of issue. But in the beginning itself, like the project beginning itself, sometimes you may get the issues. Okay, so that's how you are going to load the data from one database table to database table. Okay, so this is what about like this data flow task. So using this data flow task, you can load the data from flat file to destination table, flat file to database table, or else Excel to database table, or else anything. For any of these things to load the data, we use data flow task. This will available in control flow components. Okay, you can see for control flow you are having different components. Okay, if you are in control flow tab, you can see different components in the toolbox. Once you go to the data flow task, data flow tab, there are some different tasks. Control flow will have control flow items. Data flow will have data flow items. Okay, so if you want to do any kind of operations from source to destination, okay, in source I have 100 rows and in destination I don't have any rows, or else in my destination also 100 rows. Again, for the next time loading, in source I am getting 120 rows, but in my destination I am having already 100 rows. So whatever the rows I already have, those rows I should not load. Whatever the new rows I am having in source, those 20 rows, only those 20 I have to load. How to specify the load for the system? So we have to do some kind of operation, or else we have to use some transformation. Okay, while getting the data from source to destination. That means in between from source to destination, I have to use some kind of logics over here. Okay, if you want to do any kind of transformation, we will use in data flow tab in between source and target. So whatever the transformation you want to use, those transformations you can see under data flow tab, under data flow items. Okay, so we will see one by one, one by one transformations in coming sessions, and even control flow items also in next class. Okay, so we will wrap up and we'll meet tomorrow.
Sir, I had a question like if you go to the data flow,
Yes?
hello,
Yeah, yeah.
can you please go to the data flow?
Data flow. Yes.
So if you click on that source employee, it shows two arrows, right? One is blue and red.
Right.
So what does it mean? Like if it is blue, then we are giving some connection to the destination. That is fine.
Yes. If it is,
What
that
about the red?
means like if it is error, I will tell you in coming classes. We will discuss
Okay.
about this. This is also important thing. I will tell you in coming classes in detail. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay, sir. Okay.
for now, like you can concentrate on loading the data. So this is what like error means like, let us say you are having one transaction. Okay, in that particular transaction, you are having some date. Date will be like some formats like this. Assume like date format will be 29 June 2017 or else 29 June 2017. These are all the valid formats. 29 June 2017. Okay, or else 29/06 2017. Likewise, these are all valid formats. In some cases, you will get like 29 6, okay, 0017. Seems like there might be issue with this is not a valid format. This is not a valid year format. 0017. The year is not existing here. Okay, it is somewhat like BC years or something like that. Okay, you won't have any transaction in BCs, right? You are having before Christ, you don't have any transaction. In that case, like this is what it's not a meaningful format. Okay, system will not accept this kind of formats. So in that case, if you are getting the any record with this kind of formats, automatically the system will throw an error. Okay, this component will unable to read that particular format. So in that case, this entire flow will fail. So if you don't want to fail that particular flow, okay, I don't want to fail that particular flow, but I want to capture the rows, I want to capture the transactions which are causing for a failure. Okay, you want to capture the failure, then you can use this particular error mark, red color error mark, and you can redirect the rows into some other destination using this error mark. Okay, so whatever the errored out rows, whatever the rows are having some different format issues, those rows it will take to the another destination. That and all we'll configure and we'll have a discussion on that. Okay, so how to handle those things and what is the use of this particular error mark, we will come to know. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We'll wrap up and we'll meet tomorrow.